level or your secondary level. When you DNA, you're talking about something which is consistent in all human beings.
Sure.
Yes?
Sure.
That's how you know the species sometimes. Even if it's completely like in an accident or something, you'd be able to identify whether that's an animal or a human being.
Correct.
Yes?
Yeah.
So how is it possible for all of this DNA, which we know is a specific code in there and a specific design in there?
Yeah.
How do you think it came about just randomly?
I think we got really lucky.
I think it's time.
Come on,
Like,
seriously?
Yeah,
Are you going to
yeah.
put it down to luck?
I think you absolutely can. Yeah.
I don't think you can have anything randomly existing which is consistent.
Everything is random.
In fact, random itself is not random.
Yeah, I know.
If you ask the people who deal with random, they'll tell you there are certain sequences in this, and hence it's not random.
But could you just take consciousness for example? I always question, well, how the hell are we conscious?
Very good question, actually. Very good question.
And my first.
Well, what's the answer to that?
First answer for me is we're never going to know. So I accept that we're never going to know.
No, but you can't say we're never going to know.
No. It doesn't mean I'm not going to continuously talk about it like we are.
Yeah.
But for me, I would rather, with creation, for example, I accept that as humans, that we're going to have no idea of knowing.
No, but why do you say there won't be?
Accept to just to not know and think and develop forever. But I will never know, and I will never say whether there is or.
Why would you say you would never know?
Because how would we?
Unless you know the future, how can you say you will never know? You don't know the future, do you? It is like me saying I've lost a ring. I will never ever find it. Maybe somebody who has the device, somebody has the tools, are able to find it. If I'm not able to find it, but for you to make this assertion that you will never find an answer to such a thing, is kind of problematic in itself, because then you are assuming that you know the future.
Okay, I wouldn't say that
I don't know what you meant by we, but I'm assuming human beings, right?
I wouldn't say I'm predicting the future. I'm saying that I'm making a wise decision, having looked at the history and having looked at the way the world's developed, how there are multiple religions and stories that people love to ascribe themselves. You know, we have people who love to think about what's it called, star signs and everything, which I love to think about. But that's their own narrative and story.
No, but hold on.
And there is in history.
People have spoken about consciousness. Other religions have spoken about consciousness. In fact, Islam speaks about consciousness. Today, if you go and speak to a psychologist, they will speak to you about consciousness. They'll tell you about emotions and how you actually are impacted by it. So consciousness itself, which we call the nafs, okay, it's quite broad in its understanding, but we do have a lot of information about it. Yes?
What do you think?
For example,
why are we conscious?
For example, how would you define consciousness?
I define it as an inner awakeness, an inner monologue, and an inner aliveness.
It's basically just awareness.
Sorry?
It's just awareness. So if awareness, you know, to be aware of your environment, that's if you're conscious of your environment, hence you're conscious.
That sounds like you're saying it's like a physical thing then.
No, it is not. It's not physical thing. Your consciousness is something which the scientists have no empirical evidence for. So it cannot be physical. Because if it was physical, they would have by now had the evidence for consciousness. The reason it's called the hard problem of consciousness is because you, I, and all the scientists know that we have consciousness, yet they have no empirical evidence for it.
But just because they don't have empirical evidence now doesn't mean they won't have it in the future.
Exactly my point. That's what the lady was saying, that we will never know. To make this assertion itself is problematic because you don't have the tools maybe right now. But all I'm saying is that, in fact, there's something called the philosophy of science, which does believe in consciousness, which believes in the metaphysical, yes, which can explain to you things about emotions and so on. Like I said, psychology is one of them.
Yeah.
But science itself is something which is a study of the naturalistic world,
right,
which is beyond the scope of science to understand the metaphysical, like your consciousness.
Going back to that point previously,
yeah,
you're saying it's beyond the point of science to understand the metaphysical.
Different sciences. One is called the philosophy of science, the other is naturalistic science. So even science has different fields.
Okay, but the philosophy of science part just sounds like...
Like what?
I don't really...
It's much more broad than actual science, you know that.
Yeah, but how is it science though?
It is science because you cannot separate things like metaphysical.
What is the philosophy philosophy of science.
For example, things which are beyond just the naturalistic world, it takes that into account. Your emotions, for example. You cannot see your emotions in a lab or under a microscope and say, okay, this is how you're feeling now. So if I were to ask you, whom do you love more, your pet or your parents? How can you, other than yourself, how will you prove objectively to anybody else your answer? You can't.
But that's not really the philosophy of science.
It is.
You could probably
Ask a psychologist,
You probably could.
and they will be able to tell you, asking you certain questions.
If they could see your like sensory reaction.
No,
to like negative things happening to your parents and your pets.
No,
then
electrochemical
the one
impulses have got nothing to do with consciousness or your emotions. A person taking drugs can show those signs. To do with that. It's just how these are mechanical things within your body. They undergo a certain change depending on certain observations within at that particular time. Like I said, it can be induced by chemicals. Do you know that?
Yeah, but I think that's like
It's got nothing to do with consciousness.
I think that's like a precursor to consciousness, though.
No, it's not.
Okay, that's
Can we go back
different.
to-
Is the operation of your brain through the neurons, which are physical,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
and how they interact at that particular time. It's got nothing to do with consciousness itself.
I disagree.
Yeah?
That's all. And
Well,
I think
they wouldn't call it-
maybe artificial
my friend, they wouldn't call it the
intelligence,
heart
that's getting
problem.
So much better.
Yeah.
That's getting to the point where.
No, that's psychology. So the psychologists, they ask you certain questions, and based on that, they deduce the answer that this is, yes, you love your cat more than your mom. See what I mean? So this is through inference, and there's nothing wrong in that. But that doesn't mean that they have evidence of that they can observe under a microscope. So it is based on inference. See what I mean? Similarly, we can understand where the universe came from based on inference. So if I were to ask you that the universe created itself, would you believe that? Or would that even be rational?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay, it did exist at one point, and then it created itself. Think it didn't exist,
It didn't exist, and
it created
I
itself.
don't think
Is
it
that
makes-
rational?
you can't- No, it doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
It doesn't make sense that it created itself.
Yes.
But why?
That would be like saying a mother gave birth to herself.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
appreciate
something
your
like
point.
that,
Yeah,
similar.
I appreciate
It's an analogy. I know it's not perfect.
So taking it back to like what you think a creator is, then like what? Is
Okay, so before we jump to the creator, we need to go through certain inferences and to understand, like the Kalam cosmological argument which you talked about. The first point of that is anything that begins to exist must have a cause. Now we have already eliminated that the cause could be the universe itself. Do you agree? Because the universe didn't exist. It didn't exist in the first place. There's no way it could have caused itself. You answered the question already.
I know this goes. I know how
Yeah,
this
we've
goes,
done.
so I'll
I've
let
done
you-
this
I'll
as
let you-
well.
Okay.
Go on then.
But you answered the question for me actually, so I'm so glad. Let's work for me. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, let's say Kate. Say that we've taken that as a.
Yeah,
as
that
a
is
fact.
so that is taken care of.
Yeah.
Now the other possibility where many people say is that can something come from nothing? Think before you answer. Can something, like you and me, like the universe itself, can it come from nothing? And if you want, we can go through what nothing actually means.
I know what it means, but I
How do you define absolute nothingness?
not even like a void.
Yeah.
There literally is
Yeah.
nothing.
How would you define absolute
So you
nothingness?
can't really define it.
It's not like
It's very hard
Okay,
to.
let me rephrase that question. Does nothing exist?
No.
no.
Good answer. I'm surprised you guys know this, mashallah. Let's work for me, like I said. Because many
We
times,
study philosophy.
alhamdulillah, many times I have to actually go through a lot of lengthy
I'm sure,
discussions
I'm sure.
just to understand, make them understand that nothing doesn't even exist. Because absolute nothingness, I would define it as absence of everything. How is that for philosophical answer? Absence
It's
of
spot on, I would say,
absence of everything that you can imagine, that you can think of, that you
It's
know.
impossible now that we're here, like nothing
Yeah.
doesn't exist. And it never
Yeah, so it doesn't exist. So something that doesn't exist cannot bring about something that does exist. Do you agree? Something that doesn't even exist, like nothing,
Sure.
cannot bring about something that does exist, like you and me.
Okay.
Yeah? Let alone the universe. Okay, so now we have eliminated two things. The universe cannot create itself. It cannot come from nothing. Now, what is the best alternative you can give me? Because I don't want to use any terms from my theist perspective and put it in your mouth. I want you to, because you guys come from a philosophical background, give me your best shot as to what could be the cause of the universe. Do you study philosophy? Or you have
Oh, no, I did. I did it A
Not really,
level.
a little, yeah.
A level?
Only a little bit. Only a little bit.
Okay. Yourself?
Yeah, but I did English as well.
Oh, that's good.
So
Literature
not
does help.
like loads.
It does help, yeah. Shall we just say something? Let's say X. Something created the universe.
I can take that.
Yeah?
I can take that something.
Okay. Now give.
Thing.
Yeah, thing. It has to be. It cannot be nothing. So it must be.
To me,
The opposite of
it
nothing
cannot
is
be a
something, right?
Okay.
Let's say something. It cannot be nothing. It has to be something.
It definitely can't be a person.
Okay. Now we need to ask you what is a person.
A human like you.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not a person. I agree. Okay. Do you acknowledge it has a will?
It has what?
A will.
I will.
To bring something into existence, you need a will.
No, I'm not sure about that.
No,
Why?
I'm not sure either.
How can something happen without a will? If you're an agency, in order for you to act, you need a will to bring about that action into manifestation. In order to manifest any of your actions, as a being, you must have a will.
Okay, but we haven't established that the something that created the universe was being.
Yeah, but that's the reason I'm asking. If it has a will, then by definition it must be a being.
No, but for example, like...
So let's understand.
But does it have to have? When you say will, what do you mean by will?
In order to cause something.
It's tried actively to do.
No,
this,
not actively. In order to cause something, you must action it.
Okay.
Okay. So if I were to move a ball.
A leaf flying through the air, that's no will. But
Yeah.
it's still moving.
Yeah.
I don't.
So the
think
cause of that.
something needs to have will.
No. The cause of that is the wind. Okay.
But there's no will.
That's fine. But in order to,
So-
the wind didn't come from just a void, would it? Everything, like I
There's
said.
no will in wind moving.
No. I know, but
So
the
there
wind.
can be movement and still
Do you think the wind?
happening
Do you think the?
without will.
Okay. Do you think the wind is self-sufficient, independent, or the wind itself is contingent on something else?
The will is the will.
The will is contingent.
Will or the wind?
Sorry. Okay. The wind. I'm getting confused myself.
The wind.
Yes.
The wind is contingent on something else.
Exactly. It has to be.
No. Yeah.
Remember the first law or the first rule of Kalam cosmology. Anything that exists, yes, or sorry, anything that begins to exist must have a cause.
Okay.
The wind began to exist somewhere around the globe. I'm pretty sure. Yes. Doesn't matter which wind you talk about. Okay, it has a cause. So anything that and we have to go through this exercise of what caused it, and you'll come to a conclusion that anything that begins to exist is contingent. So now going back to this, the cause of the universe, which we call something, yes. Okay, before even we speak about will, let's at least say that it is not contingent. Because if it was contingent, then you'll have an infinite regress where you're going to ask, okay, what caused this? What caused X? What caused Y? What caused that? So on. See what I mean? And it's a never-ending infinite regress, which in reality doesn't exist, just like nothing. Logically speaking, you cannot have something going
We have
on.
established that. I have accepted that we eliminated the first two things.
So nothing and
Nothing
universe
and
is causing.
creating itself.
Yeah.
So
And the
that's
third thing we can eliminate is infinite regress.
And we have eliminated that,
Yeah.
There can't be an infinite regress, yes.
Yeah.
But what we say, so there's something, fine, but you're saying that something needs to have will.
Yes.
That's what I'm not sure about.
Because like I said, in order to cause something to come into existence when it didn't exist at all.
No, just sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, sure.
But think about it this way: like, if you have all the ingredients, because when we're talking about the universe, we're talking about like a really long time, and maybe people like to say that things happen over a long period of time, and it's a mechanism. There's no need for will and all this stuff. If you think about it this way, like if you had the ingredients of a recipe in a kitchen, you just had the ingredients there with no willing agent. If you left it there for 1,000,000 years, will the recipe ever be made? So you could have all the right ingredients for a universe, for existing, all these things, right? But if you didn't have an agent with a will that willed this and took all these things and created this,
To action it, you need something or someone to
you need
action it.
somebody, an agent to do this thing. So you could tell now that
Why
this
are we saying it's somebody?
No, but
How could it
no,
be?
we are still on something.
So surely
We're still on something.
sorry,
Something.
yeah,
We're still on
something,
something. So in order, look, if anything that has a will, then automatically it is a being. Do you agree?
It's a being.
A being.
A being.
Like
It could be a human being, it could be another being. Okay, all this, because you as a human being, you have a will.
no, but the other example that we use is, could you just chuck up a load of letters and it lands into Shakespeare or something like that, right?
No, not even.
That would be magic. Where do you get that from?
No, but technically that could happen. You could.
No, but
have
there
all
is
those
still a willing
ingredients.
agent. Do you
That's
see that?
technically
No, do you
possible.
see the willing agent though? Like to get the
Throwing
shit,
it up.
you're still throwing it up.
No, but
Yeah, no.
So
I
if you just had
appreciate
lettuce,
You still need the raw
lettuce would
material.
never-
I
yeah.
appreciate that, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a being.
No,
No, it's
but
still-
when you say, look, you can't expect letters to just form a book. This is,
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
No, but the being,
Theoretically, it's
but the being could be
possible.
even
The
something.
letters.
Not that. No. If
How?
you just have all those letters in a pile, once something would have to throw those letters up
Yeah.
to land into.
Yeah, but do you notice how that thing? Do you notice how that thing has will, has volition?
But you could have it.
in order to
a
have-
machine that does that.
Yeah. So even if you want to say that, it's some kind of like willing agent.
the machine has to be
Okay, no,
designed.
yes, I appreciate
The machine
that,
didn't pop out of existence, does it?
No.
So we have to go, whatever example you gave, you have to know, go back to the first rule of Kalam cosmological
An
law.
actual machine. It could be something natural that has that.
Yeah, so give us this-
Been designed or made.
So
by a
give us
person.
this example. What is this thing? What is this natural thing which can bring about the universe? Go on. I'm waiting.
First of all, what natural thing-
I'm not making any sort of.
All
claim
I'm
that
saying is that in
someone-
order to action it,
I'm not making any
okay,
claim there.
that's
so-
fine. In order for this natural thing to action something, it must have a will. In order to design the universe, in order to create the universe, in order to bring from nothing something, all of this requires someone, which is something, someone or something which is a willing agent.
Okay.
Okay,
But then
so if this agent is-
how we go from something to someone?
Yeah,
Like I said, the will. You cannot divorce the will from this agent now.
For me, I just can't. compute that.
Show me anything that happens without it being caused. It has to have a cause.
Yeah,
And this
no,
cause,
I
this
appreciate
causation.
That, but it's not. But lots of things aren't consciously caused, though.
No, but there must be some. Look, anything that begins to exist. Like you took the example of wind. You haven't shown me anything that does not have a cause so far. Everything has a cause.
No, I agree.
Okay, so the only thing that does not have a cause is what brought is this necessary thing, if you want to call it, something or some being, whatever you want to call it. This necessary entity, yes, has to bring about the universe, and in order to bring it about into existence, it must have a will. Yeah, just ignore this. Okay?
And
the number is 9.
So what I mean?
So I got distracted a little bit there.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's,
No.
it's speaker's
no,
corner, we got
yeah,
hackless
yeah,
here.
yeah. Not your
Yes.
fault. Don't worry.
Okay, so in order for anything to be caused, you cannot do it without a will in order to action it.
Okay.
If you want to bring about an action, let's say you are a conscious being and you are bringing something to the world, you have your own creation, for example, or even your own baby, for example, you must have a will to do that. Yes? Or something that brings about it from it didn't exist to existence.
Okay.
You cannot do it without being...
Let's say yes, because I don't.
No, but you can't just say yes. Look, if something is coming from nothing,
Yeah.
in order to bring it into existence, there must be a will involved. You can't divorce it from...
But can you just tell me again what you mean by will specifically?
Okay, means actively, consciously bringing it into existence.
No, I think you're confusing things now.
So why does this?
Which
person
part am I
wanna bring-
confusing?
I'm confused. I think you're.
How would you define will? When you're willing to do
Yeah,
something?
no, I'd say the same thing. I'd say the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
Thing.
So why are you saying I'm confusing them?
But lots of things happen. It's not. There's no like conscious thought
No,
process.
for everything for every example you gave me, I'm pretty sure it has a cause.
No, but yeah, but.
But here we have
cause-
gone beyond that. We have gone beyond...
A cause doesn't mean will though.
No, but the cause, look, anything that has a cause, okay, then is either contingent or it is non-contingent, like this first cause or the uncaused cause, yes? In order for this uncaused cause to cause something, it must have a will. There's no other way around it.
No, I disagree. I'm sorry.
You show me why that is incoherent. Because what we talk about is everything in the universe that you give example, it is something which is dependent on something else. Hence, the causation is contingent And
Trying to think.
yeah, which is a good thing, you know, as human beings, that is our best
We're
tool.
having more of like a semantic argument here.
It
Like
is
the
really, like, the
semantics
whole
is
thing
the
is
thing that
language.
you're.
If you want to call causation semantics, that's up to you. But it's pretty scientific here in terms of something which is contingent and something which is not contingent, not dependent on anything, self-sufficient, self-existing, has a will, has intelligence, designs everything that you see from the micro to the macro. Okay, it must have a will.
Okay, but yeah.
And why you still
design,
didn't tell me?
sort of thing.
You still didn't tell me why you disagree with it, other than just shaking your head.
Well, no, because as I said,
Can I ask a
think
quick random question?
semantics.
Yeah.
Did the sun exist before the being?
Of course,
The sun existed.
if the universe existed, the sun is part of the universe.
Yeah.
So
I thought we went beyond that already.
No, I'm not saying what existed before the being, the something existed.
No. We are taking it one step at a time. I'm saying the universe itself didn't exist at one point, and everything that you can imagine in the universe, including all the matter, all the energy, all the galaxies, all the suns, yes, all of these
Everything
are
is created
contingent.
by-
All of
everything is
these,
created by.
yeah, all of this is
being.
contingent
So-
on the creator, something if you want to call it, someone if you want to call it, some being or some entity.
But we can't. You know how we can't contemplate nothing.
Yes.
So what happened? What was there, or what existed before that? Then
Yeah, we can't contemplate. I agree with
But you
you.
could understand the concept.
Yeah.
Like you could understand the words.
I can't understand the concept.
Well, let's see. So, absolute nothingness is the absence of everything.
Yeah, we've.
Yeah,
So
but
if you
so
if
no,
you
they
could-
already.
if you-
So we
if you
already
understand
eliminated
that,
But
nothing.
that's
means
just
you
language.
definitely-
That's just like
No, no.
words that we've used. Like we don't.
it's-
We can't actually. We can't actually contemplate.
Okay, I'll
nothing.
give you. I'll
Just
tell you.
because
I'll give you a good.
explain
I'll give you
something
a good
as
Your
example.
ideas have to be put into words.
There's these.
Yeah, but
In order to communicate, that's the only way human beings can communicate.
Yeah, but just because we can put it into words doesn't mean.
No, no.
it's
I'll show you. I'll give you a good example in geometry. Yeah? In geometry, there's these shapes. Like I forgot what the word. Like a thousand shape polygon, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
There's names for these shapes. Yeah. We could never conceptualize. We could never think of or imagine them, basically. But we can understand them conceptually. So you can't like see or vision in your mind what a thousand shape polygon actually looks like, because we've never seen anything like it.
5 dimensions.
But we could define one. We could define one, and you could understand that this word means
Okay.
thousand shape polygon. You don't need to be able to see it to understand it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Okay,
oh,
that's
oh.
fine. Can I quickly? before
Yeah,
I forget
sure,
it?
go on.
Okay, so okay, that makes sense to me. But then, so say there is this nothing. Then
Nothing doesn't
No,
exist.
there isn't. That's the point.
No, there is a something.
No, but before the being that you're saying, before the being created the universe,
Yeah, so
there
there's
was
still the
there
being.
was nothing.
No,
Oh.
there was never
So
nothing.
there was always.
No, wait. No,
There's
no.
always a being.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
And that's what I meant by the necessary.
There's always been
Yes.
a being.
That's why I said a necessary being, as opposed to the contingent existence, like the universe, like you and me, everything. So there has to be something always there, someone or some entity always there, which we call the necessary existence, the necessary
Why do we call
being.
it someone? Because there was no
Because I-
earth for the someone to be on.
because-
So is this someone? What is this someone? What is it?
It's good God.
Yeah, I know, but what is God?
You can call- look.
energy.
To make things
No, no.
easier, we don't believe in God as a human being. So when we say someone, we're not talking about a human being.
So why do
We're
we
talking
attach the being's language to what you believe is God?
Because a being
That's
has
a big problem I have.
a being has to be have a will in order to do something, to action something. In this case, the universe, creating the universe. So it has to be an intelligent being with a will.
The problem I've got that is I don't necessarily think it has to be like a conscious, intentional thing. Then.
Why not?
Why does it have to be?
Because that.
Because
Can I tell you why?
I'm not making the
Can I
claim
tell
that.
you
I'm
why?
not saying it wasn't.
Let me
but
tell you
I'm
why.
not-
Let me
I'm
tell you
go
why.
on.
Because if it's not an intentional and conscious cause, if it's a mechanistic, that's the only other alternative.
Sure.
If it's mechanistic, like you said with the AI, eternal causes have eternal effects. So what does that mean? So if there is, for example, if I turn the light switch on, there's no lag between me turning it on and the light coming on. So, because we know that existence wasn't always here, and we know that prior to existence, there was this thing, that means the cause is not a mechanistic cause. You see what I'm saying? Because mechanistic causes, there's no lag. If the cause exists, the effect necessarily exists. So if there's a being, there needs to be an effect. There needs to be a universe. Well, we know the universe didn't always exist, and we know for the universe to exist, there must have always been a being. So you see, there's this time you could let's say, where there was the being and no universe. That means the cause. That's the problem.
I still want to know, why do you disagree with
So it has to be
a conscious,
intentional. It has to be there was
a
point in
conscious
time
willing
where It
agent?
was an intention agent that
Yeah.
made it to come about, because it wasn't forced. I just explained, like electrical currents on a circuit or anything like that. Like if there was a what's it called, if the cause occurs, effect necessarily occurs. That's a mechanistic cause. But an intentional cause, like I, for example, have the ability to see, but I could delay that. I could delay sight by closing my eyes, but I could intentionally want to see by opening my eyes. See what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not following this.
Okay, just
Some
stick
Nona
the.
words
And stick.
take
Okay, how about
I've
this?
been trying.
Yeah, keep it simple, bro.
I'll keep it to the electrical example, which is what? Switch on immediately if
Can I
everything's
just know
working.
what you're trying to prove now?
I'm just trying to show it because he's stuck on
Sorry,
the fact
Willis.
that this agent or this being or this thing has will or has it's an agent. It's a volition. It's
Actively
conscious.
trying
to
Yes,
create.
actively trying to create. It's not some mechanism that's like dead. You know what I mean? Like a dead
I still
mechanism.
want to know from you guys, why do you think this being or this entity, say for example, cannot be conscious and willing if you know that it is going to bring this existence, including the universe, to be created? Why do you think it's not conscious or willing? So for anyone to create anything, they must have consciousness.
He's saying it could have been the other one.
Yeah, but what's the alternative? It cannot be mechanical, because mechanical, then you must imply there must be some other matter, some other thing before the universe then, which we have no evidence for.
So like mechanistic things require like calibration, require somebody to bring them about,
I
etc.
see.
So
Yeah, I see.
they're dependent, like the way they're functioning, they're dependent on something that configures their function.
Yeah.
That's one issue. Another issue that I'd say to you is the issue that I was talking about before. Mechanistic causes don't have ability to not manifest their effects.
How do you know that the being that created the universe was created by a being before that? Then?
Oh, good. So, if that, let's say that this is the case, then you wouldn't be talking about the being that would be the ultimate creator, because the thing that is the ultimate creator that everything else relies upon
It's like the first
cannot.
point.
Yes, the first
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It
I see,
cannot
I see.
because remember the problem of infinite regress. Because okay, if you say the thing that created the universe also had something to create, that means we're not talking about God.
No,
We're talking
I
about.
appreciate
But
that.
there needs
surely the
something before,
ultimate
yeah.
creator doesn't the ultimate creator still have an infinite?
Sorry.
No,
Doesn't
because
that
it's
still have the
uncreated.
infinite-
Let me tell you why.
Because
you're
it is
making a-
uncreated, it's self-sufficient, it's
It's
independent.
only things that have began to exist.
Yes.
Needed cause before. And the argument is it never began to exist, it always existed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you strip it away from time, yeah, because some people like to talk about timing issues like time.
Let's not complicate
I'm
what-
not gonna complicate. If you just do this, if you take the sum aggregate, if you just collect all things that are dependent on other things, like the wind, like the universe, everything within the universe, all that, just take it as a sum. All that, because it's dependent on something else, that whole set is dependent on something else, and because everything that is dependent is inside that set, it cannot be dependent on something that is dependent also. Why? Because all dependent things are inside that set. You get what
So
I'm saying?
we need to everything you see, the universe, and you cannot say that everything that is outside the universe, yes, in this case, because we don't know.